Hi everyone, and I'm back with the next action plan, and we're almost like halfway through, and just three more action points remaining. Before I go ahead, I would like to appeal to all of you that these action plans, though they come across as very exhaustive and very energy engaging, but in all my honesty, I would say it is just about the will and the need to change this the environment surrounding gender biases, the will to have a better world for all of us. If each family in this society kind of thinks on those lines, whatever I have been giving you in terms of the action points, all these are easily implementable. So there's nothing like, how do we implement this? You can easily implement. The only thing is you need to have the will to go ahead with this. So coming back to today's action point is for parents as well as for people to know that this modern day world is full of myths and lies and constant disinformation that is being thrown our way through various channels, through various means, in the real world as well as in the virtual world. So today's action point is teaching young boys or educating and empowering them with intimacy education. So this intimacy education is very, very important. Now, there is a difference between sex education and intimacy education. As a psychologist, I firmly believe that you cannot have a holistic sex education, given to kids without the concept of intimacy. What most sex education programs or trainings, what they lack, especially the ones that happen in school, they lack the concept of intimacy. And I think it is a misconception on the part of adults that all we need to teach our children is about the birds and bees, or about sex, or about physical anatomy, or the biology, the physiology, all these aspects. What we often ignore and neglect is the psychological aspect that surrounds it, because sex, when we just teach them sex education pertaining to physiology and physical, in the physical sense, in the biological sense, we are giving them a negative message that okay, sex is all about your physique, your physicality, your physiology, your biology, and your anatomy. So I think that's not right. So what we need to do is we need to pre-arm our teenagers, our young boys, and whatever I'm talking today is also applicable to girls. Again, all the action points are in a way applicable to girls, but today's, yes, definitely you must also do that with your girls. What is important is to pre-arm them with the need for, you can say, intimacy, making them understand the concept of intimacy, making them understand how valuable intimacy is and how it can help them to choose the right partners, how it can help them to, you can say, live a meaningful relationship, and how it can help them to have critical decisions made easier for them. So young boys have this fractured notions about sex, about relationships, and they kind of there is a lot of what you call is there is a lot of attitude of I want to fit into what the society thinks, I want to fit into the current trends, I want to fit into. So there are many teenagers who don't want to begin or to get into a relationship. They don't want to have a boyfriend, they don't want to have a girlfriend, but because of the peer pressure and because of all the disinformation, most of them kind of just get pushed into it automatically, because they have this I have to fit into. So fitting into something is like you're not really sure, you're very calculative, and you're trying to get into it. But what I'm saying is, when you're into a relationship, there has to be this sense of belongingness, and that is something that our youngsters are not aware of. Blame it on the popular culture, blame it on the instant gratification that the media is continuously enforcing through various means, and blame it on the lack of dialogue, lack of conversation on behalf of the parents, on behalf of the educators. These young minds are really confused. So what do you actually need to do is that you have to be able to disintegrate, you know, first is understand and, get to know what they know about sex, what they know about, you can say, a man woman relationship, what are the different dynamics that they are aware of. Because while you're growing up, you are going through so many changes physically, psychologically, and you are everyone expects so much from you at that age, like as a teenager, and you are constantly struggling with the constant surge of energy that's happening inside you, and you do not know how to channelize this energy, and you come across a serial, come across a movie, or something that you find yourself close to, and you just kind of get carried away, and you just start building your own notions about relationships, about sex, about dating, about various other things. And most of these teenagers don't have a safe space at home to speak about these issues. They are not having those conversations with their parents because the parents do not give them that space. And I'm telling you, this intimacy education begins really early. It's not that when your teens get into the teenage mode. Intimacy education begins right from the beginning, because you have to be able to teach your child is that being intimate with something is about being involved completely, holistically, in a healthy way, and engaging yourself into that moment is very, very important. So intimacy is not just the sexual intimacy that we are talking about. We are, I personally am trying to highlight that intimacy can be physical, emotional, sexual, creative, intimacy, as well as spiritual intimacy. And as children are young, you can begin by being intimate with them, by spending time with them, by being with them. Okay, I think all my action points stress on spending quality time with your kids, having qualitative conversations, having safe space to engage in difficult conversations. So this is the base of pre-arming your kids with intimacy education. And sex education is incomplete if you cannot teach them about intimacy. Then definitely sex education is totally a waste. And if you sit and talk to these teenagers, they've already, even before the counselor or someone comes in their class and teaches them about, okay, this is the way it happens, and this is the physiology, this is the biology. So I don't think so. Most of these kids already know how it works because they have easy access to porn. So if you want to teach your child about intimacy, it's very important that first you have a conversation about pornography. You must be able to make them understand, realize, or make them aware about the dangers of pornography and the kind of notions and the kind of confusing messages that it gives about intimacy, about consent, about several other aspects of relationships, and how it kind of presses the viewers into unrealistic expectations that can actually leave them dissatisfied, discontent in their own relationships. So this is a very important conversation that you need to have about pornography. Just telling them that, on religious grounds, on social grounds, on moral grounds, don't watch pornography is not going to help, because even you and I know that in our teenage years, we have all flipped through magazines during our times because we didn't have easy access to pornography maybe. But we all have done these things out of curiosity, and most important, because we didn't have a what you call is an open space in the family to talk about such an important thing. So most cultures resist talking about pornography to children, and I would highly, highly encourage, no matter which culture you belong to, it's your child, it's your boy, you have to be able to talk to them about all these things. Sometimes, between the mothers and daughters, you still have some conversations happening, but when it comes to boys, there is this clear cut, you can say, absence of communication in families. So I would highly encourage the families to please speak and engage with your boys. The first thing is about pornography. It's not just that it's demeaning, it's demoralizing, and it's like dehumanizing things and stuff like that, but also the potential effect it will have on them, the kind of nasty or unrealistic and false expectations it kind of gives to its viewers, and also the fact that most of these movies and the videos are, there are people, there are kids, there are women, there are men, there are young boys who are trapped into this pornography industry. They don't really want to do it on their own. So it's like you kind of, you raise the demand and there will be a supply. So you kind of cut down on the demand, and there's a lot that you're contributing. So as a part of being socially responsible as well, I urge parents to talk about pornography, and also to kind of remove yourself from all those WhatsApp groups of your college, of your school, of your office, where you kind of have those boys talk, where you kind of just send these dirty clips to each other and have a laugh on it because there's some meme made out of it. I think that's where, as adults, we can begin by, through our actions, that we will not watch pornography at any cost, neither for our own enjoyment. I don't see how people enjoy it, but yes, this is something that parents must decide on their own and set an example for their youngsters. So one is, if you have to teach intimacy, it's not just about sex education. You also have to, the first step is, you need to sit to them and talk to them and understand what and how much they know. And then you kind of talk to them about pornography. And intimacy education is very important, because intimacy teaches you to value the partner into that relationship. And intimacy kind of gives you different dimensions, because there is not just the physical dimension of your partner that you have to be looking for. There is the intellectual dimension, there is the creative dimension, there is the spiritual dimension, there is the psychological dimension, and all these dimensions make up for a person. And if you have to engage with someone, you need to be compatible. You need to kind of find your way out to, to connect with your partner in the moment about it. So with an overdose of pornography, and if we don't talk about intimacy, what happens is these young boys learn to express love, so-called love, in a very unhealthy way. Maybe it can turn into a crime, it can turn into abuse, it can turn into a trap for themselves, or they might become victims themselves. So it's very important that we engage boys into this conversation about intimacy. So what does it mean, being intimate with someone? Being intimate with someone is not just romantic. You can be intimate with the work that you do. You have to be involved, engaged, and into that process. That is how you can say, define it. And if we teach intimacy to our kids, we are kind of telling them that yes, you can have a healthy, meaningful relationship with your partner. And then you're also slowly kind of breaking their myths about what to expect in a relationship, about not being you can say, not being too scared about how to and what to do in a relationship, and not to just get into the flow, but know and have that clarity as to what you want from that relationship. The most important part of intimacy education is to be able to tell your kids and to be able to understand that if you want to be intimate with someone, you must be able to find someone with whom you're comfortable. So that comfort level is very important, and the peer pressure is not should not be the criteria. The kind of myths that you have watching media and listening to your friends, because trust me, all the teenagers who are listening to this, when your friends kind of come and talk to you about them making out or their first kiss or any such thing, there's a lot of exaggeration that happens. There's a lot of lies in it. There's a lot of over the top, you can say, exaggerated content in it. And that's again because they are teenagers, and everyone wants to show that I'm the best, I'm perfect, and everything has to be perfect. So first important thing is in intimacy, if you want to be intimate with someone, you have to find someone with whom you're comfortable. Being comfortable with mean it means actually you can dare to be yourself around them. You can be comfortable around them. You can trust them when you're not with them, when you're not together. So, like, let's say you have to go in a long distance relationship for a month or two. Intimacy is about that emotional intimacy is something that keeps you together because you're not physically around each other. So you are able to trust the other person, and you are not, you kind of respect each other's boundaries. You understand each other's expectations. You kind of resonate with each other's beliefs, and you kind of disagree on many occasions or certain occasions, but you respect the other person's views. So you aren't in a relationship, you are really intimate if you're not too pressurized to do things that you don't want to do. And you have to tell your children, whenever you are in a relationship, you're dating, whatever you're doing, you should not be doing things that you don't want to do. And that is a very important message that these youngsters need to learn, especially boys. And you should not pressurize someone to do what they don't want to do. So that is what intimacy actually includes. It also means being intimate with someone doesn't mean that you get lost in that person. You kind of immerse yourself so strongly into that person that you forget your surroundings. You forget that you are an individual in yourself. You are enough for yourself. You don't need a person to complete you. You don't need someone else to validate how you look and that you are the best, or your worth, your inner worth cannot be validated just by your partner. So you have to know that you cannot immerse yourself so much into that relationship that you kind of forget everything around yourself. You forget that you have friends, you forget that you have parents, you forget that you have a family, you forget that you have your responsibilities. That is madness. That is being insane. That is being totally out of touch with reality. And if you're out of touch with reality, there's something that's abnormal, that's something that's toxic, that's something that's not working right. So I want you to be able to tell your children that in case if you think that you are being very intimate with your partner by totally forgetting the rest of the world, I'm sorry, that's not intimacy. Because intimacy gives enough space to your partner and to yourself. Intimacy respects boundaries. Intimacy is something that will help you grow in the relationship. It will not kind of suffocate you or restrict your growth. Okay. You have to be able to teach your boys that they can be their own person. It's very common, like when you're dating, you share common interests and you do stuff, but don't be afraid to be vulnerable. As boys, especially boys have this pressure always on them that they cannot be perceived as weak. They cannot be perceived as someone who can get scared, who's afraid. So I would definitely try to tell the boys that be vulnerable, because you can be courageous only when you're vulnerable. And when I'm saying this, all I want to mean is learn to express your emotions to your partner, learn to emote, learn to confess, learn to talk, learn to be your authentic self with your partner. That will help you to grow that intimacy in a healthy way. Okay, so your self-esteem improves when you're authentic. Your self-esteem actually kind of shoots up when you are being yourself, when you are understanding that, okay, fine, I have a different self-interest and my partner has a different self-interest, so we kind of need to find a common ground. So that is also what intimacy education means. Intimacy education also means that in a relationship, no relationship is going to be on a forever honeymoon thing. The honeymoon is just for a while in any relationship. All of us go through that honeymoon phase in a relationship. So you have to be realistic, and you have to know that problems are inevitable in a relationship. What is needed is the will and the resolve to solve those conflicts and to solve those problems. We've been hammered most of the times as parents and as adults also that problems in a relationship are a bad sign. So you you kind of feel, oh, if a relationship is going through a crisis, through a problem, then it's supposed to be doomed, or it is going to doom. So you have to know, you have to teach your young boys that don't run away from problems, don't hide from problems, try to take ownership, try to get accountable, try to get into the problem solving mode, use your creativity. And it is always good to admit that you're wrong. It is always it's going to be difficult, but in a relationship, if you want to be intimate, you have to teach your boys that it is important that you admit that you're wrong. It's also important to teach boys about intimacy in a way where they know that there is a difference between a good conflict and a bad conflict, because generally, again, conflict is kind of stereotyped as something that is bad and harmful and dangerous. But conflict can also get you closer and more intimate with your partner if you solve it, or if you both decide to work on it in a healthy way. So it is about, again, explaining how you feel about certain things, not to bring up the past disagreements, not to blame the person, not to kind of pounce on the person. So this is, again, another aspect of intimacy. And what's important is, as parents, our role is specifically not to just, or even as educators, I believe, when we go on field, and it's been like 2 to 3 years, we are experimenting with different things and different techniques, and we realize that most of these teenagers are not interested in sex. They don't want to know about sex. Not that they know about it and whatever. They are actually asking you as an adult, how can you help me with my emotions? How can you help me with my feelings? And believe me, the boys also, they kind of, they don't know, because for boys, they just cannot, they're just not allowed to feel their emotions. They just cannot talk about it to anybody. So every time you go on this field work, I get boys at the end of the session, after the session is over, when I'm like getting out of my class, they're like coming closer and standing and saying, "Ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, I have a question." And the kind of questions that they pose, you get to see that they want to learn about relationships. They want to be these healthy men. They don't agree necessarily with how the society defines a real man. They want to set their own definitions. They have different views about gender, about you can say gender discrimination. They do have a voice, but they just need a lot of guidance. They just need a lot of support. And as parents, as adults, as educators, never leave an opportunity to sit with your children and talk about this intimacy, because I have seen most of the parents, it's not about how much time do you spend with your child. It's also about the quality time that you spend. Maybe you're spending just 10 minutes with your child throughout the day, from the beginning, from his or her early years. But you will see the level of connection depends upon the quality of engagement, the quality of conversations, the quality of communication, and that is nothing but intimacy. So you have to be able to tell your boys that if they want to be happy, if they want to live fulfilling lives, if they want to be a source of happiness for others and for themselves, if they want to be enjoying the true beauty of life and relationships, they will have to learn to be intimate with their partners first, and let intimacy be the first priority. And like physical and sexual intimacy can shuffle on and off, but before getting into the act of sex with your partner, what is important is intimacy. What is important is knowing your partner. What is important is knowing what you want from that relationship, and also about giving it time, attention, all the organic attention, not the inorganic one, not to kind of go mad into it, and to be able to preserve your own identity and your own individuality is also, that is a priority. So again, this is one of these action points where I'm saying pre-arm your boys with intimacy education along with sex education, and you will see huge difference in the way boys turn into healthy men, or who will be, you can say, gender supportive, and who will be you can say, instrumental in streamlining all the genders. Thank you.